Hi, everyone. My name is Carlos Guadamus. I'm the Business Development Manager here at Cisco, working specifically within Contact Center. So, as I said in the previous video, I really want to be able to focus in on the customer side of the story. So our customer's customer, because after all, what we're selling is customer experience software. So here I am. I'm actually on the Webex page. I'm interested in subscribing and getting Webex teams going for my business. Obviously, I'm probably some sort of IT person or administrator, and my boss has tasked me with going about and finding out more information. So I'm going to go ahead here, enter my name, and provide my email address in case I need to be contacted at a later time. And I'm going to select which subject my question is really about. And on the back end, what Webex Contact Center can do is actually route each one of these selections into a queue pertaining to the selection. So let me go ahead and get started and click start the chat. Now, there will be a little pause, a little bit of a delay before you can actually go back and forth with the chat bot that's implemented here. And what I typically say is something along the lines of, with this chat widget, you can actually build it out utilizing a tool or a wizard within the Webex Control Hub that will walk you through all of the configuration, what kind of look, what kind of feel you want, and then give you the JSON file to deploy it. And usually by the end of me saying that, the indication that it's ready to converse, I see there's that dark paperclip. I could say hello, and it typically means that it's ready to go. So as soon as I say hello, it'll probably give me a response back, hopefully. And there it is, my first response. And I just immediately, maybe we'll ask it a question like testing locations. And what you're going to want to do is basically build out, because this is accessing Dialogflow, right? So you're going to want to build it out to have a nice conversation that you'd expect a customer to be having with the enterprise or the business. In this case, I would just say agent, please. And simply the word agent is what activates Dialogflow to make the call into the contact center and say, okay, this guy needs more help than what I can provide. So in a moment here, we'll get a response, and it's going to say, let me find someone who can assist. And it's at this point we switch hats. We stop our conversation as being customer, and we come over here into the Webex Contact Center desktop. Go ahead and let me accept that interaction. Now, I received that interaction at this time because really I'm the only one in the queue right now, and I'm also marked available. You'll see here that we can assign various statuses of what you can be in, but for the most part, you're not going to receive any type of interaction unless you're unavailable. Secondly, I can see here what number I can be contacted in on, what team I'm a part of, my channel capacity. And at this time, I could take one voice call, I could take 2 emails, 2 chats, and 2 socials. And you could really configure that and change that to whatever it is you want it to be per every team. I also have the ability to switch to dark mode. I said this earlier, but I just want to reemphasize that sometimes your eyes do get tired, and working in dark mode is a pretty big relief. But for this demo, I'm just going to keep it in light mode. Last but not least, we do have keyboard shortcuts in here. And what keyboard shortcuts do is allow really your best agents to perform at their highest level. It really allows them to move around efficiently, not having to drag the mouse from here to over there. So some of the best agents that we've seen out there are pretty proficient. And one of the things that they've really asked us for is to have keyboard shortcuts. Getting back to the chat, an agent doesn't have to start all over. I can continue in on the conversation just as it was before it was transferred or escalated up to me. I see, the hello and the greeting, and I can just say, oh, okay, looks like he's probably interested in scheduling an appointment, could start right away. In addition to knowing and having that complete context in my back pocket, I also have access to predefined chat responses. And really where we see this becoming useful is when another chat comes in, and then maybe another chat comes in after that. And now you're trying to juggle, or manage, I should say, yourself between multiple chats. And so, I could easily come in here and say, welcome, how may I assist you? But again, I wouldn't be using the context in that terms. I would say something of, maybe we get them scheduled for appointment, or I've confirmed that I can schedule that appointment with the person. What you'll see over here to the right side is a little bit of a contact history. Now, right now, the contact history is only displaying the chat and email in history that's come in. Pretty soon, we're going to be able to see this across the voice channel as well, and even soon, and hopefully very soon, we can see the entire journey in a much more visual sort of view. I could even come in here and see some of the email correspondence that this customer has had with the business. So it just provides me a little bit more insight as to what's happening with this customer and what he's been experiencing. And you notice that I expanded this. So we're using web components here in order to really first of all, give the agent control of the desktop and let them do what they need to do with it, but also allow for configuration of the desktop. So you can embed things within it, like maybe some sort of CRM to look up who the customer is, some sort of calendar, or even perhaps a Google Maps, for example. If I needed to transfer this out, I have the ability to do that. I could transfer it out to an agent. I could even transfer it out to a queue. And if I needed to send it over to a particular agent, looks like he's available, I could go ahead and do that. In addition to transferring, I could also conference in someone. So if Aruna was online, I'd be able to bring him in, but I could also bring this guy in as well. So we can pretty much help resolve this customer's particular issue really quick, really easily, and try to provide a really high level of customer service and customer experience. I'm going to go ahead and end this interaction on the agent's desktop, assuming that the customer was able to get the information that they wanted. What we see quite often is that roughly about 85% of customer journeys begin on the web, and that's across all verticals. And so that's why I like to show chat first. Quite often we'll get pushback, and I hear people say, oh, well, we don't do chat yet. We're not planning to do that. But chat opens the door to really AI, to bringing in bots, to helping the customer lower their overall interaction demand so that their voice cues aren't blowing through the roof. And so even if I get a little pushback, I will still show them chat just to let them know how, first of all, that it's there. It's pretty easy to deploy, and it's really easy for an agent to go back and forth and handle multiple chats at once. So let's go ahead and end that interaction. Let's assume that the customer, or the patient in this case, was able to get the information that they needed, and they're able to move on to the next step in their journey. And if I go back onto the page where I injected the chat, you see here that the chat is ended. I'll go ahead and close it. You'll see here, do you want to end the chat session? And one thing that's pretty clever here is that we have the ability here to click here to view the transcript. So what happens quite often is, because on the customer side, it was just such a low priority, they probably forgot the answers that they were given. They probably forgot what locations were mentioned. And this pretty much solves that by giving them access to, when it started, when it ended, and what was said, and what was some of the context. So I could easily come back in here and follow up with what were some of the locations that were provided. So I'll go ahead and close that out. Now that I have my PDF transcript, I thought that was a 5-star experience, and I hope you did too. So let's go ahead and let's submit the feedback, and let's say okay. And as a customer progresses further into the journey, we want to make sure that there are more channels readily available. And let me just minimize this here, or let's bring it down just a bit. And what I've done is our customer's gone ahead and he's activated, or not activated, he's got a confirmation from Webex saying, hey, it looks like you've been, your order has gone through. Really cool. But what happens when you get your order is you get anxious, right? You want to follow up. You want to figure out where's my URL, where's my link, where's my login? How do I get to the next step to actually getting into the product? And what I've done here is I went ahead, I used a HTML email editor, and I've embedded the ability to send an SMS or even open up a call from just this email, right? So I'm just going to go here, hopefully not fat finger it, and just type, hello, where is my order? Where's my order? And I'm going to be a pest because usually when you're trying to get, the information from a business, you want it right away. And so I'm going to hit this business up in multiple directions. Where is my order? I'll use exclamation point there. And as I bring the desktop back into view, the SMS has already come through. Go ahead, click accept. And SMS is one of those channels that we've always been dinged on for not having. Well, here it is, and we have it. One thing to note, and one thing to really hammer home here, is going to be our ability to have a contextual conversation with a customer. And what do I mean by that? I mean that when you text back and forth with your friends, with your family members, there's always going to be some sort of context. It's just something we take for granted. We know what we're going to say or what has happened in the past or what happened yesterday. Kind of have an idea of where the conversation is going. A business typically doesn't have that type of insight. But the way you get that type of insight is by being able to see any and all conversations that have happened up until that point. Now, right now, all I can see is the entire history of the SMS thread. And what typically happens is that I would reply to this customer and the customer might reply instantly or the customer might reply at a later date. In any case, it might even go to a different agent. The fact is, we'll have this context available to continue the conversation, help Carlos out with where's his order, let's get him a link, and I'll just say something like, oh, your link is pending, in order to buy us a little bit more time, right? I also have the ability to do the same thing as you saw previously with the chat interaction. I could transfer it out, I can conference it, and back on my phone, I just saw the alert, and that's why I turned my head there. I get the, oh, your link is pending. And just in time, it looks like the same customer's contacting us. It's Carlos at Cisco. Now he needs to figure out, or he wants to know, hey, he's getting real feisty here. He wants to know where his order is, and we can do a quick reply. And what you'll notice here, we can do a quick reply, right? And that'll just inject whatever text that I want to send over to the customer. Or if I click reply here, there's actually a template. There's a template ready to go, and you could configure that and set that up so that it's in a professional manner. It could even use variables. There's my name already in there. That's all variables. And it's kind of funny that's even coming from me. But in any case, we also have the reminder to, not share any personal information that could, put the company in jeopardy. And that's something that comes out of the box. So now in two different interactions, okay? Within the interaction or all the interactions, there's going to be variables up here that are picked up along the way. And some of those variables are things like what queue did it hit? In this case, it's a text message. So what SMS number did he contact us on? That could be important. That could be the fact that he's contacting us on a premier SMS line, right? Or maybe there's a phone number here from a new number and I want to get that added to a CRM. I could easily copy that and just want to show you that it's copied. I wouldn't send it back to the customer, but there it is. So I can easily do that. So I gave him the link is pending. I'm just going to go ahead, click end, give it a nice wrap-up code, right? It was just, let's just say he needed tech support. He just wants to know where his link is. Thank you for your request. And just say, it's on the way, dude. You need to relax, right? And let's just send it over and he'll be able to do that. A little bit more with the desktop before I move on to the next interaction is we have the ability, let's see here. Now my data's failing to load. I must have not sacrificed enough coffee for the demo guides once again. We have the ability here to inject Webex Experience Manager. Now, right now, something's up with the connection, but here you would be able to get that dashboard that you're pretty much used to when you look at CloudCherry or Webex Experience Management. Kind of shows you the NPS, the CSAT, and some of the replies that are going back and forth or surveys that are coming in. In addition to that, you get your agent performance statistics. This is pretty important for agents, day in and day out as you're logging in, logging out of the system. What's happening on an overall perspective? How are we doing? How many interactions has my team handled? Oh, 7 phone calls, 5 chats. How long has it taken us to handle these calls? Okay. And then for me, in a historic point of view, I could look at how I've been doing throughout the day, and I could also look at how I'm doing in real time. So if I had any interactions here, they'd be showing. I just closed them all out, so that's why you don't see it. So our customer started out on the web. They were curious. They got the answer they needed to get themselves to the next round or the next level in the journey, which is basically a purchase. After they received the purchase, they needed to come in and they wanted to follow up. In an e-commerce scenario, you want to know where your package is, right? When you open up a checking account, you want to know when do your checks arrive for your bank account. What typically happens is that after you've obtained a service or that you've pretty much own a product and a product has been delivered, a little bit down the road, you'll hit a point where you need support. And when you need support, it's probably a much bigger priority than what we've seen before, right? And when customers have high priority items, what do? They call, right? We always call. I always call. If there's an issue, I'm calling. I'm going to hang on that line. Even if there's no callback offered, I'm going to wait there until I get that information that I need. So let's go ahead. Let's call into the IVR and let's get my screen here so you can see I'm dialing away. And I'm going to go back to that email and let's call him this time. And I'm not sure if you're going to be able to hear it, but I'll make it as loud as possible.
Bosco. Sorry, could you say that again?
Agent, please.
Let me find someone who can assist.
I'm going to answer that. Put it on mute. And you'll notice I'm using Webex Teams for the call, right? So this is a really important point that I also like to hammer home as well. I'm an agent. I don't have another phone. I'm using the phone client within my desktop here to be able to handle this interaction. I could be using my regular phone, I could be using my mobile phone. I could be using my phone at home. I could be using it in the office when it comes time for return to work, so I don't have to touch some other phone. It could always be in my possession. So we really want to be able to hammer home that thought and that idea of the return to work and the safety of that. If we come back here to the screen, again, I have some metadata that was picked up as I went through the IVR. What phone number did I call? If I put the call on hold, what does that sound like? Really, really cool, funky 70s music. I like to throw that in from time to time. Really funky, gets a good response. Let's bring it back in. Again, I could consult, bring someone in, or do a call transfer and toss them over the fence. Again, I have the contact history here. As you see, it's only on the phone because right now I didn't have a CRM per se to associate my phone number and my email all to the same contact, right? Additionally, screen pop. I'll show you how to do this. We have the ability now to orchestrate things to happen on the agent desktop. So when a particular interaction comes through, we can pop to certain web pages, for example. We can pop to knowledge bases. We can pop to whatever you've gathered in the discovery, hopefully. And we just want to display that we can utilize the desktop in a very efficient manner by giving the agent access to the information that they need without having to fumble through multiple windows and get all lost. So I'll go ahead and bring that back down. So that's pretty much a voice call. It's just like any of the other interactions, but really the emphasis here that you want to hammer home is the ability for this to be phone agnostic. I'm not behind a VPN. I can use a phone client within my phone, a soft phone within my computer, or can use my regular mobile phone. Let's go ahead and end that call. And so that ends. And that's where I pretty much conclude the portion of the contact center, the Webex Contact Center desktop, right? You don't want to get too carried away with it. People will veer off from time to time. The reason I did front it with most of the with most of the digital interactions is because that's where people are looking to go. We're getting a lot of information from companies that we work with, and they're saying that they're looking to deploy these chat channels and even social media, right? So now that I said that, kind of reminds me, we do have that connection into Facebook Messenger. And I'll go ahead and just say hello. And after I say hello, that pretty much gets set to a queue for me to take. And so now Not only can I do a chat, not only can I do an email, an SMS, or even a voice call, I'm here and I'm talking to someone that's using Facebook Messenger, right? This really appeals to a lot of commercial customers, the younger demographic. They want to be able to speak to their customers on their customers' platform of choice. And the younger generation tends to be a lot more on social media. So now we have that, and that's readily available. You could also front, I forgot to mention this earlier on the call, but you could front these also with the chat bot, right? So maybe there's some things, some easy things that the chat bot can take care of. And if and when it's necessary, they could actually get escalated to the agent if necessary. And in this scenario, we're also doing another screen pop just to show that it could be done. Previously, you saw it down at the bottom. This is just taking advantage of web components and being able to put it in the format that we want to, and it's over here on the side. So I just want to show that before I move on. So all the channels are there. So now that we're finished with this particular part of the presentation or the demo, I'd like to move into the Webex Control Hub. This is basically the Webex Control Hub webpage. This lets you know of all the services that are online. I mentioned this earlier, and I'll mention it again. This is where I come to find out, hey, are we having any sort of issues? And sometimes when we are, you'll start to see these turn different colors. They'll go from yellow sometimes. I've even seen it to red. But the places that we really want to focus in on are things like users. This is where we come in, and this is where an admin would add their users and enable them for Contact Center. But also the most important part is actually coming down here to the Contact Center part. And I like to start on the Features tab. So the Features tab actually breaks down into 3 tabs. It's like the All tab, which includes chat templates and virtual agents. If I just click Chat Templates, this pretty much opens the door to go ahead and use that wizard that I mentioned earlier when you first saw the chat, right? I get into that spiel before that hard or dark paperclip appears. This is what I'm referring to save me that time, right? So I'll come in here and I'll just walk through it. This is where you select an entry point. Obviously, this would need to be defined in advance, right? You don't define it here. You would define this utilizing the Contact Center portal, portal. Portal's where you do a lot of the management of the actual platform itself, but you would need to come in and define your entry points ahead of time before you establish the entry point here. Entry points assigned to the chat point do not appear for selection. Going through the wizard allows you to do a couple things that are pretty cool. First of all, proactive prompt. That's basically putting a timer on the chat widget. Are we going to call a virtual agent to front this particular chat? Are there any off hours that we should be considerate of? And then should we allow a feedback form? And that was the part where you saw me give myself 5 stars. Moving forward, this is where we need to collect some of the customer information. It's with this data that we start to tie in who this customer is, why they might be calling, and really what value can they have to us. This is where we also come in and I select that, we're going to use a drop-down menu, and I want it to be billing, support, product inquiry. And then I leave the last one as optional in case they want to put any extra stuff in there. I choose what bot, what virtual agent do I want to front this particular interaction. I give it a welcome message, just letting the customer know, hey, you're dealing with a bot first. Maybe there's something you can ask it. Maybe you can even say something along the lines of, you can ask me anything, or giving them an example, right? You kind of have to encourage customers, the customer's customer to utilize a bot. Right now, people are still kind of scared of them in a way. Here's the open and closing hours. I have it open 24/7. And then here's what it looks like when you rate that chat experience. But when you get to the very end of it, you would click finish. I'm not going to do that. Yes, I do want to discard my changes. I'm not going to save them. But when you do that, you end up getting a JSON file. And what the JSON file looks like is something like this. So here it is. You can download the embed code. I like to just do Command A or Control A. I like to copy it for use. And how I want to show you guys this since we're here. How did I inject it onto the Webex actual domain, onto the page, right? So what I did, let me get my big head out of the way here. I'm using Chrome, as you can see, and I'm actually using a plugin or an extension called User JavaScript and CSS. It's free. Go ahead, let me go into it. Let me go into the settings to show you guys. And I put chat widgets on various websites, just like this. Literally with that copy, I'm just gonna come in here, click paste. I'm gonna take the script out. We don't need that in there. It actually gives you that red X letting you know it doesn't have to be there. Let's just delete here, or delete, and then click save. And then it's ready to go, right? It's ready to go. And as soon as I get on that web page, and no matter where I go on that domain, that chat widget will pretty much be persistent. And it ends up being or showing really well. What we can also do and what we do plan to do is kind of have these generic vertical web pages where it'll always be there. It'll just be living. But the best reactions that I've ever gotten when doing demos is configuring and customizing it using their page. It makes it that much more believable. So coming back here to the Webex Control Hub, you saw me go through a chat template and build that out. If you have a virtual agent, this is where you make or bring that virtual agent in. Let's give you an example of what that looks like. And you see some logos here. This pretty much defines that, oh, in this dialog flow or this virtual agent, same difference. I could do, it's doing voice and it's doing chat. So let's just take a look at it. Use it for chat, use it for voice. It's asking you or telling you, hey, I hope you've built it before. If not, I'm going to tell you how to do it. You download the intents, you import it to Dialogflow. You get the auth key, you validate. It's already there. I'm not going to do it. Give it a name. You could give the avatar a look. You give it a look and feel. You know, sometimes that helps people. So I'll go ahead and click finish, but I don't want to mess up his demo. But that's pretty much the wizard per se to go ahead and set that up. It's really straightforward. It's really easy. Pretty much anyone can do that and not have to worry about breaking anything. The second part within Webex Control Hub is really how we pretty much bring in things like Facebook Messenger or SMS, as well as Webex Experience Management, our Google connectors, and our Salesforce. Now, all 5 of those are out-of-the-box integrations. They're ready to go. The configuration is there. You just need to do the right inputs in order to connect them, connect them into the Webex Control Hub here. In this case, you gave it, I just need the auth key and give it a name. And the reason we do these kinds of things is because we're going to leverage these when we get into flow control. So with that being said, let's move over into flow control. Let me make this bigger. So flow control, this is the all new what you see is what you get interface, right? We really wanted to push for that low code, no code movement so that someone without VXML experience could come in here and feel pretty confident about coming in and putting together a routing, routing flow, call flow. On the left-hand side, we have building blocks. These all are building blocks that you would need in order to build a pretty efficient, or I should say sufficient, IVR. In addition to just being a call flow builder, it actually has the ability to fire off event flows. So if I were to follow this path, I'd come in as a new phone call, new phone contact, play a message like, hey, welcome, thanks for calling Carlos. And then reaching a virtual agent. How can Carlos help you? And when I click on that virtual agent, I'm able to choose one of the virtual agents that I had set up in the Webex Control Hub. So you need to do that first before you get to this part. And I could call any one of these. I'm comfortable with the KT Banking one because that's the one Krishna set up for me. Thanks, Krishna. And you could also do things like make it interruptible. So maybe you're in the demo and you notice you're losing the crowd, right? You want to make that interruptible so you can just say agent and it'll go right to the agent before the whole thing, the whole spiel plays out. Other things you can do, let's see the play message. Let me go back one to play message. This was a big ask too, is the ability to enable text to speech. So you'd have to go ahead and click that on. You choose whatever Google connector that you'd set up. Choose the language, choose the voice. I need English Standard C, and I need to add a text-to-speech message. I'm not gonna bring in an audio file, but you could. If you had audio files, you could play them and bring them in here. But the whole value of this is just being able to say, this is so amazing. I can make it say whatever I want, right? I can make it say whatever. What we find here is that IT just gets bombarded with tasks and asks, and they just want something easy, something programmatical. If there is an outage, hey, come in here, put a play message. We're currently having longer than normal handle times. It's going to be a while before we get back to you. Things like that make their lives easier. And it also saves a lot of money, because when sometimes you need to add audio files, you need to go out and get those professionally done. I honestly have been impressed with this language engine. I've been doing this for quite some time, going on 21 years, and IVRs or TTS engines have come a long way. They've gone from these robotic sounding things to this really natural type of language, especially coming from Google. Determine a speaking rate so you can, speed it up, make it sound like a chipmunk, or even make it a little bit louder. Maybe have an older demographic that's calling into your IVR, so you can go ahead and handle those TTS settings here. So let's go back to what I said about event flows. This call comes in, hits the play message, a virtual agent. We set up a couple variables for it, and eventually gets to a queue. And what queue is that? Oh, it's going to be this queue, which my agent was a part of. When it hits that queue, it's going to perform also this action. So I could actually click on that, and it takes me to the second, I'll go back again because it happens fast. So it takes me to the second tab here, event flows. Now we're just starting out here. This is the very beginning of event flows. Right now we have it on the beginning and the end of a call, right? Or the agent answers and the agent hangs up. And when an agent answers, you can populate a screen pop to basically to whatever URL you define here. And if necessary, you can bring in some key value pairs so that you can start associating, and not just pop to just one screen, but pop to context. It'll be Carlos's interaction record within the CRM, and that's some of the things you can do with key value pairs. And also when the phone call ends, here's our integration into Webex Experience Management, so that when it ends and it hangs up, should we send a text survey to find out how that call was? Should we send an email? Should we send both? How do we do that? And that's all available here. Let's go back to the main flow. And one thing I do like to close out with here is that all the while the flow is being validated. Right now I have no flow errors, but let's just say I came in here and I broke something. And when I break something, I instantly get an error. You got flow errors here. So one is on the virtual agent block, and the second one is on the plain message too. It's literally calling out the boxes as they display here. And it's letting me know one or more ports are not connected. Same thing here. In addition to that, it's saying, hey, maybe you need to add a description. Maybe you need to connect them. You need to do something. It won't let me publish the flow if there are flow errors, okay? Some people, they just like to build things out and then check afterwards, in terms of it being validated. That's not a problem either. All you need to do is just turn this off, go about building it. But again, you would not be able to save it, because if you hover over here, it says flows must pass validation before being published. So they did a pretty good job here of creating a lot of hover over menus or help guides, so that as you're learning and doing this along the way, you're learning all the different things it could do. And I understand there will be a more in-depth training in regards to Flow Designer and some of the latest capabilities that are being released. Because when I first got access to this, I've probably only seen, I don't know, seven or eight different call blocks or fundamental building blocks to build out your palette here. So with that, I think that pretty much gets us to the very end of the demo. So to reemphasize, we've gone from the customer being interested in a product or being interested in a subscription, or maybe even a patient wanting to find out more about booking an appointment with a hospital. From that customer side to what's that like on the agent side, and how nice it is for the agent to be able to easily navigate multiple interactions, digital interactions, going back and forth between them. And then we moved into, okay, so how did we really make this magic come to life, right? Because it appears like it's pretty magical, but there's configuration that takes place. We went through the Webex Control Hub, the wizards of setting up a virtual agent and also setting up a chat template. And then lastly, I ended on flow control. This tends to capture a lot of attention, the colors, the ability to move things around. It ends up being a real personable type of application to show and conclude on. And typically after this, if there is enough time, you kind of want to take them into Analyzer and show them some things about reporting, because what is a contact center solution without reporting, right?
Thanks for watching. One of our consultants would be happy to spend some time understanding your business and how Cisco Webex Contact Centre might help you do things better. We look forward to speaking to you soon.